everyone. I'll go ahead and call the September regular school board meeting to order. Please note that all directors are here in person. And do I have a volunteer to read the mission and vision statements tonight? Great. Thank you, Director Zander. Go for it.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. Seeing there's no old business on our agenda this evening, we'll move forward and I'll accept a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
I'll second. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
We discussed timing for future meetings. I know it's not included in here, but
It's swimming season.
swimming season will start on Wednesday, so.
Okay. So I would suggest for the board to consider, we can maybe add that into the end of new business after, and we'll just add an item after letter G. That's acceptable for everyone, or if there would be a motion for that amendment.
I make a motion that we talk about the schedule as item 9G.
I think it's gonna be 9H.
It's gonna be H.
I'll second that.
9H.
An amendment to the adding an agenda item as item H, consider approval of a future meeting time.
Can you do that?
You can add agenda items, and so it's appropriate. Usually you add them if it's an emergency. We could just have a discussion about it. So if we don't want to approve it, we could have a discussion in conjunction with superintendent's report, or which would probably be better than adding it as item H, actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
Doesn't mean we can't do it, but you're supposed to save adding things 24 hours or less for like the needing to
Fix the boiler.
fix the boiler. I was gonna say the boiler or the hot water heater, actually.
Kind of the same thing.
Very similar, yeah.
Okay, well, we have had a motion and a second, so let's let that carry on and then we can.
I didn't catch that motion in a second. Remember
Ron made motion, Carol second.
the original, but not the
Yes.
adding of the H.
We're gonna push that into the superintendent's.
Okay.
Somebody can withdraw their motion.
Well, we still need to approve the agenda, the original.
We have a first and a second, and then that was just discussion.
Yes,
Okay.
so. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye,
Of approving the agenda as written.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is approval of consent items. And including past meeting minutes. Bills, personnel.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Consent items.
The second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is open forum communication from the public. So I see a lot of new faces in the room and I see a lot of new teacher faces. If anyone in the room would like to make a public comment, you're welcome to do so. Is anyone here for that purpose? Okay. And we'll move on to the presentation of teacher introductions. This is such a highlight of our year to meet new teachers in September. So welcome everyone and thanks in advance for all you do. So who would like to present them?
I guess we can go by buildings. Yeah.
And
Raise your right hand.
oh, excuse me, introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself. Okay,
Elena Otto. I'm fourth grade, new staff member. I've been in Colorado the last 5 years, but originally from Southwest Iowa, so I'm coming back to Iowa. And no, like, I'm
Always
setting
been-
the stage here.
Curious to hear where people are coming to us from and where they went to college.
I am originally from a small town, outside of Council Bluffs, Iowa, by Omaha. And I went to college in Omaha at UNO. And taught in hospitals for a few years.
Welcome.
We're glad you're in Lucky Style.
I know, us too. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Matthew Steven, so third and fourth grade at Carrie Lee, and then I'll be school counselor, and I have a social work background as well. And past 5 years, I was at MFL Monmouth School District, so it's similar role. And then the last 2 years, I've also been at Key Connect, so it's a therapeutic school in Lansing, Iowa. Now it's, I guess, yes, I think it's in the elementary school in New Albany now. And I graduated from New Hampton High School. I don't know how many times can I say that? And then I went to UNI, and that's where I graduated at the social work program there. I have a daughter, Maisie, and she's in second grade here at Decorah Schools. And my wife is a manager at the Get Up in town, so she kind of runs the day-to-day operations with Lisa Lance there, and does a lot of fun marketing over social media too. If you caught that, so yeah. Nice. Welcome.
I'm Chris Hadley. I'm the new 5th and 6th grade band director. I'll do 7, 8 jazz band, and then assistant high school marching and high school lessons and that type of stuff. I did my student teaching in the same position 17 years ago with Jim and Liz Fritz. And then I taught 5 years in El Cater, 5 years at Makokata Valley in Delhi, a year and a half in Tokyo, Japan. And then we came back without a job. And so for the last 6 years, I was the West Music road guy for Northeast Iowa. Ron did the ask where he went to school thing to set me up for failure here, but I did go to Wartburg College. I did saxophone performance at Wartburg, and then I went to UNI for my teacher license, originally from Don Bosco, Gilbertville area. But excited to be full-time in Decorah. I have been working with this drama program for 5 years, and I was the choir this the last year or so, playing a bunch of stuff. So yeah, super excited to be back in the classroom.
I'm Sarah Coates, and I am a middle school orchestra teacher now. I've been back in Decorah. Yeah, I went to Luther. So, and then I did my.
Not a contest.
But you win.
Did my master's at the University of Texas in Austin. I'm originally from northern Minnesota, okay, so right by Duluth. But my husband and I moved back to Decorah in 2020. And the last couple of years, I've been in the district doing the string lesson position at the middle school and the high school, and then also doing music at St. Bet's. So very glad to be just in strings again. Married, 2 boys. One is a sophomore in college, and one is a senior at the high school.
Right. So I'm Alyssa Marceau. I'm the new business teacher, high school, came in at the last second. So I am coming to the school from the industry. My last position was a project management role with a radiology company. Before that, I worked for a large med tech company as an analyst, and then my husband and I own a small business in town. We have an electrical contracting company, so all the real world experiences now in the classroom for the kids. Let's see, my undergrad is in healthcare administration from Upper Iowa, and I finished my MBA this summer, also through Upper Iowa. So my first go around to teaching, but so far, so good. Yeah, originally from Sumner. I have 2 daughters at the high school and then a 4th grader at St. Ben's. So, yeah.
Great.
And then Heidi Snell Anderson and Greta Schwartz were also new teachers at the middle school this year. Let them know in the 3rd grade.
Yeah, Heidi Still Anderson teaches fifth grade science for us. So she is coming from the private school in Spillville and had done some things at Luther as well as kind of agent professor. So excited to have her in our building. Greta Schwartz took a few years off to be a mom and kind of working to get back into the teaching world. And so she'll be doing some special ed for us in grades 5 through 8. So she's a Decorah native. We're excited to be back in Decorah here the last few years too. So excited to have those two and all of our new staff from the district here. So.
Great. Well, welcome, and please stay in touch, and, you know, our emails are posted on the website. Feel free to reach out and share what you're experiencing with the board. It's nice to be connected to staff.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I'm sure you're all very anxious to sit through the rest of the meeting, but it's okay if you leave early.
But don't trample each other.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to new business. The first item under new business is approval of preschool collaborative 28E agreements. And Dr. Cronin, would you like to talk us through these two contracts?
This is something we do every year. These 5 different preschool providers provide the preschool, the statewide voluntary preschool programs that are funded by the state. And I guess the benefit there is we wouldn't necessarily have room for them if we wanted to have them in our school. So it's a mutually beneficial. The collaborative partners get together and work with Rick and Shanna on a regular basis. I'm trying to think what else I'm missing to say about this, Rick or Kathy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've been in collaboration for multiple years now, so, yeah, all these things are true. We get together with directors meetings about 3 or 4 times a year, and then, yeah, teachers, we try to get together at least on a monthly basis and talk about best practice and things that we can do together to make sure we're all moving forward with the best interest of our preschoolers and helping them transition into our schools or in St. Ben's as well.
Mhm.
I see an agreement, we hold back 5%.
That's by the state, yes.
And that's what we do, as we set up for that, we do 5%.
Any changes of substance since last year or the last 10 years?
No.
In that case, I move to approve the 2080 collaborative agreements.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the first reading of 605.01, selection of instructional materials.
This is kind of a long policy. This has 601.5, and then it has a couple regulations that go with it. One of the things that we'd like to streamline is on at the end of page 4 and 5 of the regulation 1, just the gifts to the library. Because that was, if you remember last year, we did this policy. The board wants to see those or approve those ahead of time, but there's an idea like maybe we'll create a Google Doc and we can just kind of update the board as those come in, because they do get more than one at it, they kind of come and go in waves. But if like I could put those on my weekly report and just say, here are the new titles, then you wouldn't have to just get it right for the board meeting kind of thing. Other than that, making sure it includes 605.2, the instructional materials inspection delay. That's a new one. And then cleaning up a little language on 605.3 regulation 1 was the last part. We just had the reconsideration committee and they reviewed a textbook and kind of going through this process, making sure that it outlines all the membership correctly. So that's a 6-member team. and there was a teacher librarian on that, there was an administrator, 3 community members, and then we had one other employee that was a school employee that did not get assigned on that committee, but they still were able to complete their work. So this is the first reading. These are all recommended by ISAB and making sure we're in compliant with the new state laws. I know we looked at them once last year, but they keep evolving and rewrote some of the parts over the summer. So.
Mhm. Just as a side note, Tim and I sat on a book review committee last winter. And I think it is best if the board is approving books or not, it seems a conflict of interest to also be on the committee. So I appreciate the separation of that and to involve community members and staff as outlined by the agreement. I think that's a good change.
Well, move to approve the first reading of 605.01, 2, and 3.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion items that need to be had before we move forward about? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is consider approval for an MOU.
Memorandum of Understanding. So this is a pretty unique one. We're still working on what this document, the wording would be in this document, but this is a situation where with the governor's new minimum salaries for 12-year employees, there's a pretty big jump from year, well, we call it 12, because if you have 11 years of experience, we put you on step 12. So if I speak, I'm talking about you've taught for 11 years. If you've taught for 12 years, you'd be at the $60,000 minimum. So there's right now in our salary schedule, I believe it's about if you're at 11 years, you might be in the 52,000 range, but if you're at the 12th year, you'd be in the $60,000 range. We have a situation where we've got an employee who is at 11 and a half years. So they're technically a half a year away from that 60,000. When we do the average for that, we say, okay, before the governor's minimum, the salary would be 52 and a half or 54 and a half. We'll put them together and we'll get you the half year and it ends up at 53 and a half. So this memorandum of understanding is going to go along the lines of saying, just because we've got a state law with a minimum of 60,000, and if there's an employee with a half a year, would we consider at the semester at half the year, moving that person up to the average of the state minimum and the other salary? I think the numbers are going to be about $2,777. So it's a significant difference. And it's only, we're not going to move employees who get credits in the middle of the year or for any other reason. It would just be for the half year employees and for the uniqueness of the situation with the minimum salaries, which is a good problem to have. And so so we can have discussion, but I'm asking for approval to continue to work on an MOU that we'd have in place. We could look at the official language next month, but want to make sure I'm not chasing down something the board's not comfortable with me doing.
Yeah, and
Is this an MOU between, with the Decorah Education?
Yeah, yeah. And there's a little bit of a discussion about, well, you don't even need it, you could just do it, but number one, I don't necessarily want to break protocol without at least informing the board. And I'd feel much better if it was an MOU, just because then somebody could come and say, well, you did it that one time, and I took some classes and I'd like to move, and I just would like it very clear and spelled out why we're doing this, and it applies to someone in a half-year teaching situation, and it doesn't apply to other situations. And with any luck, our salary scale will continue to grow, and at some point in time, it will overtake that 60,000, or won't be as big a gap as it is now. So and it would only apply to a half-year employee, so even if we are setting a precedent, we're setting it for one or two other people who are at half years, you know, it's not like we have more than one or two employees in that situation.
Will that person be issued a new contract then at the semester, or how would that?
That's probably gonna be a discussion that we'll wanna have. My guess is we would do an amendment to the contract.
I think with the rules changing, it's really important to have documentation in place to support Tim, to have an objective framework around these loophole or unique situations, and not that this is I don't know how to best articulate it, but this will help support Tim when these situations arise, and help support our teachers too, to get a fair to be compensated for a portion of the year that they would make that shift, rather than wait the full year for the next contract.
The question that comes to my mind is, say you start in January with your new fourth grade teacher. We hit the next school year. Should we consider that a year in service already? Because they have worked during the previous calendar year under the district, and so they're immediately at the next year. And if you entered it part-time, partway through, you get the credit for the whole year. That's the question that's in my mind. Or should we be considering it truly as like half-year increments for everyone?
It's my understanding that the practice has always been those people that come in, they get credit for half a year. So, and again, I don't think it's too many people currently in the district. I'm gonna look at Darlene, and I don't know if she has this memorized. Would you say there's 3 people that are on half years right now, Darlene?
I think it will be a little more than that. But it's not.
It's not more than 10?
No, 5 or under.
Okay,
And there's just this one that falls within that state minimum. The other steps are.
a couple people are past. Like if you're at 13 and a half, you're already at the minimum, so it doesn't apply to you. So I think, Aaron, that's probably a more of a bargaining type master contract change is probably where that would fit at.
More of an understanding on my.
Yeah,
What we've done.
I guess,
We placed them at a half a year. If somebody had taught a half a year, then they'd come in and their next year with us would be 1.5.
It's for those mid-year graduates that come in January and start teaching. And they're teaching full-time.
just one thing we'd want to maybe clarify as well is the status of a long-term sub. If someone teaches 3 months, I would think that's not a year. They're not under a,
they're not under a contract. They
Yeah.
might be getting long-term sub pay, but they're not underneath the contract. And I would assume that's how we've done it in the past, or Julie.
So again, we don't have the MOU to review yet. It's on the agenda just for Dr. Cronin to have permission to continue drafting something for our review.
I'm not too sure that I think that it makes sense to do this midterm. Just they sign a contract and they're an employee, and so it kind of does set a precedence for other situations as well. But if we do decide to do it, we absolutely need to, you're in a contract to address, make sure this is very spelled out. This is the only case that is not other cases having to do with getting your master's or something as well.
Are there any reasons that the board should consider to not pursue research and work on drafting an MOU?
that could be beneficial in any
And
event.
this is a unique situation because of the state money and the mandate from the state money for which employees.
Correct.
Yeah. Would receive this money, so this is a unique situation,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that we're working to make it right for.
Do we receive the state dollars that in a mid-year situation, because we are getting subsidized by having a teacher
Yeah, we get the state dollars one time. And we'll get them with our funding, so they've already told us how much money they're giving us this year based on what we reported. Last, the fall bed staff of October 23, I guess, we put the salaries in, they said, oh, looking at everybody you have, this is what it's gonna take to get them up to the state minimum. They'll do that exact same thing this year, because there's a new state minimum coming, for the 12-year teachers, then it goes up to 62,000. So, that will be in play. But the state just just allocates at one time.
Maybe a follow-up question, Brian's thought would be then, does this individual or potential future individuals, how do they get counted? Is the state already giving us that? Or is there a process that we might go through to?
So we'll put we put a 12.5 year person in, and I remember when you've got 11.5 years of credit, you're put at 12.5. I still have to get my brain around that, because I'm used to starting at 0, we start at 1. So your first year of teaching, you're at level 1, but we would put them in the salary that they started the year at. We'll put that in the report called fall bed staff, and that'll be due mid-October, October 15th. Somewhere in there, and that's, for years, we've been putting stuff into fall bed staff, and different organizations pulled data off of there to share out, but little did we know they were gonna pull it off and use it for the state minimum. Although, well, we didn't know the state minimum was coming, of course, and we didn't know that they were gonna pull it off of there, but yeah, that's what they'll pull off, and so they'll see this person where they're at now. So whatever we do mid-year, the state won't be aware of that until next year. And of course, this is only a 2-year thing right now, so it won't be adjusted. If we go through and do this, we would do the adjusting at mid-year, and we were reported in the October of 25 fall bed staff.
Right, so what we report to the state would be that this person is in year 11.5, not.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, so, yeah, we're paying for it, but we won't get a subsidy for the state for the extra, right, 6 months.
But we always have TSS and we have a carryover. Last year, we had to deplete down to 5%. That is no longer the case, so there might be more TSS funds that will be carried over from year to year.
And remember, the state's giving us the difference between their current salary and what it would take to get them to a minimum. The state's not giving us anything for this person, because they wouldn't be, state says, oh, that person's not at 12. But next year, when the person would be at 13.5, which would be 12.5, we would get funds for that.
I think
We need to vote
support
on
the
this.
MOU, probably all you really need to know.
That's what I need to know.
Yeah, and this can act as a discussion item. Do you have any other questions, Dr. Penman, for the board?
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on. Next on the agenda is review roof condition reports for John Klein Elementary, Carrie Lee Elementary, and Decorah High School.
So Shive Hattery, which is the architect that we hired to do the redesign on the middle school roof. Sean and I talked to Mike from Shive Hattery about doing a roof inspection. So we went up we didn't need to do a roof inspection on the middle school because that's new and that's part of the punch list. But we asked to do a roof inspection of Carrie Lee and John Klein. And knowing that, well, there's a couple of things going on. We wanted to have a priority list, so that we could start thinking about how much we should be saving for the summer of 2025 and what roofs we should be doing first. I think when we started doing this, we thought it was gonna be the Carrie Lee Auditorium. And then we said, hey, we should go up on the high school roof. And we quickly decided that it should be number one priority. Auditorium, gymnasium, Carey Lee Gymnasium, but actually number one is gonna be high school cafeteria area. Number two is probably gonna be Carey Lee Gymnasium. Highest priorities. And then if you get into the John Klein roof report, it is not a very good report at all. And I just forwarded the board a follow-up question to Mike, like, can it even? Is it gonna work for 3 more years? 3 years being what we would need it for a lifespan, and the comment was. Barring any storm damage, it should make it 3 years. But if we're gonna keep it longer than that, you really should address it. So. Sean, I defer you or would ask you to contribute areas I'm missing or other comments.
So the number one roof at the high school, just to give you a little more insight on that, it is another one of the armor light roofs. It is got seal problems. Actually, a month ago now, when it was a really heavy storm for about 15 minutes, I happened to be standing in the cafeteria and it's like, that sounds like water getting ceiling tiles. I'm also carrying them and looked at them. I was like, this is an armor. Oh no. And the seals, and it's hard to see in those pictures. I have seen those pictures you can see that the seal material is unfaded, 25 plus years old. And it's we've gotten our money's worth. This is the term that Mike used in Shire when we went and looked at it. It's been a really good roof, I think. But it's time that we gotta do something with that road. Otherwise we're gonna start having bigger problems. We went up, with Mike's recommendation, we've gone up and sealed some of the areas we know were leaking. And some material that you suggested, just to get us by at least, like, that's a temporary fix. That's just a small negative way to get you through. John Klein, we put some money into John Klein roof this year. In his follow-up email, he talked about how, that definitely helped. But you also, when you work on something here, you're also opening problems for over here. So, they left. It didn't rain for 3 or 4 weeks. When it did rain, we ran into some more issues that moved to a different room. We moved further into a room that we were already in. We've gone up and found where the tears and leaks from people being on the roof. It's an old enough roof that just walking the roof can cause even tears. So we've gone through and fixed a lot of those since then. He talks in here about budgeting, and I think that's a good thing to just know, because there's, we'll probably talk about this more, but there's like maintenance side and then there's preventative maintenance side, and having that like maintenance budget and preventative maintenance and determining when you do one or the other, and then your end all is still close to that.
And when we were looking at this project, that was one of the feedback we got from Iowa City and Linmar, was both that they use Shive Hattery as kind of just roof, like, inspect our roofs, tell us what we need to do. Obviously, those districts have a lot more buildings than we do. But making sure you stay on top of that. After, I guess the goal would be to get through the immediate triage of taking care of the roofs that we know in the summer of 2025. And then at that point in time, just kind of come up with a better replacement cycle so that we're systematically going through and doing the EDPM roofs and doing traditionally the segment is, you work with your custodian, you say, well, what do we need to replace? And custodian, I'm in a small district, so it's one building, one custodian, but you'd work with, what's the next section we should replace? And you kind of budget it out, and it's a safe PEPAL expense, and it's just, you're gonna do $100,000, or whatever the bid is. And then, since roofs are kind of basic and you're replacing normally an EPDM roof with an EPDM roof, you obviously maybe pick out sections that don't require then hiring an architect or engineer, because you're gonna get the 20-year guarantee from the roofing company. So once we get through the immediate needs of the next year or two, then it's just come up with a replacement cycle like we have with our buses,
Mhm.
and we stay on top of it.
Well, it feels good to have a complete audit of all of the roofs, right? And how nice to contract them during a time when they were doing so much work this summer already. Yeah,
And we know that roofing company does an excellent job.
Yeah, so this is Shy, who is an architect, but yeah, absolutely. If there's any way Academy Roofing would bid on our projects next summer, that would be fantastic, because they were very efficient. We feel like they did, everybody I talked to was like, oh, wow, it's great that you guys got them to come up here, and when we needed them to look at the roof at Kerry Lee, they were on, called them on a Friday, they said, we'll be up there with you on Monday morning. So absolutely. We should mention that one of the things Mike in his report or his email on John Klein is we should probably budget about $15,000 annual maintenance to get that roof through the next 3 years.
I commend you for doing this. This is very, very important. We got millions and millions of dollars worth of buildings and in order to stay on top of things with the maintenance, and we'll hopefully have a new facilities director here, and he'll have this report and something that he or she can pay attention to as well in the future. So I think it's commend you for doing it, and put a plan in place to to do the maintenance as required, and as funds become available to even go ahead and do preventive maintenance for the future as well. So I think it's great.
And I totally agree with that, and I would also like to thank Sean for being one of the guys that gets up on the road that helps figure this out too.
We were talking about how I conveniently had a meeting the day we went on the scary roof and didn't have to go. Scary by the means of difficult to get to and close-in spaces. Two things that aren't my favorite.
One thing that I think we've learned over the years is you think about the building has a roof. Each of the buildings have several roofs at different levels. I would not have thought of that when you're replacing what's on top of Kerry Lee, you've got several different individual areas which are not connected to one another because of the way the building was constructed over time. So
You probably remember, Ron, when we did the addition high school, there's some additional with new roofs, but we
Yeah.
at that particular time knew we had some life left in the roof, so we didn't do anything at that particular time, but knowing the future, we'd have to do it, and so here we are.
So yeah, obviously the commons area was not something that was done in 2012. So its time has now come.
Yep.
And then, of course, the insurance company's getting drones to fly over everything and check up on us and threaten to cancel our coverage is playing a role in all this too.
Absolutely.
Any other?
Well, I was gonna say there was a part where EMC, the insurance out of Des Moines, wanted us to come up with a plan for what we were gonna do with the middle school, and Mark Lovelace said, well, I think now that you have a new roof, you shouldn't have to come up with a plan right away for that. So they just didn't realize that we were replacing it,
new.
but yeah. So that was a good feeling.
Yeah.
So
Any other questions about the roof condition update?
Really important work, so.
Yeah.
Keep volunteer on this.
Very thorough recommendations and documents.
Okay, next is a discussion of preventative maintenance programs.
So kind of following in, and Sean, I'm gonna let you tag in with me on this one, but not just with roofs. I think we've talked about Sean's set of eyes, just maybe shifting a maintenance philosophy and putting a little bit more money into preventative maintenance. The two that I highlighted with the boards are possibly looking at HVAC, preventative maintenance, and lawnmower equipment. Depending on what the policies would look like, we could also turn around and perhaps purchase that insurance from Jester, which would then be, we have the option of having that be a maintenance fund expense rather than a general fund expense or PEPAL expense. I know, John, I set him up for you, so bring it home.
You know, that was some of the questions we had was how do you pay for, preventive maintenance program? So gesture is a good option. We cover writing equipment for buildings and grounds and then HVAC mechanical systems. It doesn't cost or cover like us going and buying a new system, but like, we have an air conditioning room in the high school, that the motor breaks. And we replace the motor that can be covered under that maintenance program. They also, with their maintenance insurance program, have now added preventative maintenance, meaning like filter replacements or going in and just annually cleaning and inspecting and making sure things are running right. You know, having somebody do that either internally or externally, and then they pay for that person's time or labor to do that to help prevent the bigger costs and outages. So I guess I just wanted to make sure everybody understands there's preventative maintenance, there's maintenance, and then there's replacement. So there's kind of three big tiers. The preventative maintenance is to help us not have big issues or have outages. You know, maintenance is kind of a reactive thing. Preventive is.
So you mentioned a company name. There are companies that have preventative maintenance programs that go across different areas of work. So we're not working with individual contractors, so to speak, but it's one program that can help manage a lot of things. Am I understanding you correctly?
It's what we're doing now, but instead of paying for paying for the preventative maintenance just out of our general fund or title save, we can pay for management fund because it can be a contracted service or like an insurance type service.
Okay.
And we could work with, if we wanted to go the route with Jester, they would come out and say, they've got a big checklist of what items do you want covered in preventative maintenance. We still have to go find, they just would take that on. We still have to find somebody to do the work. So if we, subcontractor, we went into a preventative maintenance agreement with John's Riding Lawnmower Service Department, then we would turn that over and say to Jester, it's gonna cost us $10,000 a year, and we would pay Jester, and then they would cover the policy.
We don't save any money. It's just a transfer of funds from one account to the other that helps us.
Yeah,
Not a different.
and it's my understanding that the district in the past did some preventative maintenance through Jester, but that program, we didn't continue.
We did it with computers a lot with computers, didn't we?
And copiers, right?
There wasn't copiers, it was anything, like plugged in, it's electrical in nature. Cameras, digital cameras.
And Jester is the broker that Employers Mutual uses, and all the insurances purchased through them as a program that they have that we can utilize to help us use different funds.
That answers my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So whether
We're
we,
evaluating what we need for our preventive maintenance, and then we take that evaluation and then we hire.
They would give us categories. They would say like, we'll do all the computers, but we don't need a break fix and it's often called break fix. We don't need it. We don't need a preventative maintenance or repair program for computers because we have Apple. I was gonna say Apple Care. Okay. So, this is more for, then you look down, they've got like 3 pages of stuff they'll cover. And so Sean and I and Kathy met with them this summer and they started going over and, in our mind, we're like, we don't need that. We don't need that. And then they said, we do riding lawn maintenance equipment. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, maybe we need that. And then we kind of checked and we had a lot of repairs this summer and we want to, among other things, make sure we're taking as good a care of our equipment as we can, so it lasts longer, because that is a capital investment, but, so we would come up with, here's what we want to do, we have to find somebody to provide the service contract, and then work with Jester on what they would charge us, and of course, that would all be known, it's not a secret, it's not like, it's a $10,000 contract, but Jester's gonna charge us 30,000 or something like that. If a local, it would have to be serviced by someone local unless there's a traveling HVAC company that wanted to bid on it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in town would be interested in a service contract with our, maintenance equipment. You think I don't know who that would possibly be.
I've talked to a couple about preventative maintenance as far as like just coming in regular changing filters. We've never gotten past just kind of sitting at the table and talking about, would they do that? And, there are people in town that are interested in it. It's just a matter of figuring out, when do we want to, as far as how many times a year do we want to change filters? Those types of things, because that's something that I've learned in the last 3 months is, how many times do we change filters? How many times should we be changing filters, that kind of thing, so how many times a year do we go through the units and clean them and close them down? Those types of things.
And you're talking about like HVAC filters?
Yeah.
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 And those numbers, the two, like, how often should we and how often do we?
Yeah.
Don't always match in my experience in districts I've been in, and so, and filters are expensive. And that's maybe one of the reasons they don't always get changed, and there's a lot to do, so there's some benefits there. So HVAC system, and then lawn maintenance equipment, there might be some local companies that would provide that service for us.
I bet there's at least two that would give us a price. If we said we want these serviced 4 times a year, they're gonna give us a contract price 4 times.
Well, hoping with all my heart that we have debt incurred for a new facility in the time to come. I think that investing in preventative maintenance would be to our advantage, not to be in a reactive state all the time with maintaining the rest of our facilities.
So we're also looking at hiring a facilities director. Is this something that we should, maybe, there's no reason to start this right away and get going. We surely get, now that we know about it, and I think it surely probably makes sense, especially from a air conditioning and the mechanical aspect. It would make sense just to table this a little bit and see if we can't get a person on board and get them involved in this as well.
Absolutely, and this is just to have a discussion, kind of get it on the board's
I think
purview. Absolutely, we're looking to get a buildings and grounds person hired, and obviously have that person be very involved in this, they might have a skill set that's like, no, I'm really good at this, or something. So absolutely, we're not asking for anything tonight. We just want to make sure we're having discussion, kind of fit into our roof.
Yeah.
Roof discussion, and Sean and I talked about it a few times, and so.
Yeah, good discussion.
Right.
Yeah. So, which would then kind of foreshadow for the next item, when we're ready to go on to talk about snow removal.
Okay, I think that's the perfect segue.
Perfect segue.
The next item on our agenda is discussion and possible approval of an RFP for snow removal.
And so, Sean, when it snows a lot, how does snow get removed?
That's a great question. We as the custodial staff remove the snow. And there's the staff that go out, come in early, they check the forecast, they would work with Greg and come in early and plow the snow. It's 4 o'clock. So they work a little extra. I don't know if it was overtime hours or if they left earlier and had to dug that far. But that's, so we take away some of those people who would normally work cleaning at 7 o'clock in the morning. They're actually out shoveling snow.
So it was taking away from the regular hour custodial duties on the days that it did snow.
I would say to that point too, like when we have activities, like basketball games, stuff like that. They would, we were already short staffed, but they're having to go out and, shovel and do the things versus like maintaining the actual event.
Yeah, right.
Which can make it challenging sometimes, and sometimes it's just a tough thing, you think about having a safe walkway up for people that are spectating. You might have to brush that 2 or 3 times over the course of the game. Really takes away for their ability to manage some of the stuff they were knowledge of during the event.
So we use our current staff to do this, other districts, hire their snow pushing out. So that was, in fact, we just saw Wakan or Alma-Key School District just approved their RFPs for next year. I've gone through this process in my other districts where we hired snow removal out. It's, I think what I'd like to do is have a little time to work with local folks and ask them how they want to bid. Because the sample I put in there, I just borrowed from Central City and Dockerton, and they wanted to have, we'll charge you a rate for a snow that's 1 to 3 inches. We'll charge you a different rate for 4 to 6, and we'll charge you a different rate for over 6, being that they're gonna have different equipment. It was gonna take them a different amount of time. And I don't know if that's gonna be how people up here want to bid it, or if that was just kind of a Blackhawk County thing that we took down to Central City. The piece of, I just like to talk about the concept of hiring out our snow removal, what the RFP looks like, rather than put it out there and make the snow removals conform to our request. I'd like to talk to the snow removal people and say, what's the best way for you to bid this? And check with Alma-Key. And their board notes that we kind of just looked at, it looked like they bid it 2 different ways, like if they had to use a certain truck and a different truck.
One truck and the tractor. And all they plow, all that contract was for the lots, you know, lots and sidewalks, the sidewalks was going on their maintenance staff, so that's an option too.
I
So,
think you could surely lose some control if you have a football game or not that football game, is a winter sport that's having to do with the gym. You know, somebody that's an outside vendor, you know, all of a sudden they've got a 2-inch snow, do I go, do I not go, versus having somebody, you know, on staff that's sitting there at the event saying, you know what, it's getting a little crappy out there, we better get off. So that might be a little hard for some guy that's, you know, living 15 miles away to you know, come in and take care of that.
Perfect thing to say, be like, because a lot of times I'd go out there and like, hey, we need to go to this again. You know, it's really, the challenge a little bit was just being short staffed custodially in the evenings. But so, you know, as they're out doing that, then I got people inside saying, hey, well, the garbage, like, who's gonna be doing the garbage? And so you're just trying to manage a lot of different stuff. But you're not wrong in saying that, like, it is helpful to be able to direct that a little bit more internally.
so it would take the perfect outside contracted hire.
It really would.
It would,
Yeah.
but someone with the school mentality of.
Yeah.
Knowing their sense of urgency.
And
Yeah.
having the staff or their employees enough to be able to handle that too. It surely could be broken down between the driveways versus the sidewalks and the special event type situation. Could be you shovel sidewalks before a morning and make sure that they're shoveled, you know, before school.
Yeah, I think those would be really key pieces to kind of work in and bid it in just sections so we could kind of look and see, you know, do we want to do just parking lots? Do we want to do parking lot sidewalks? We want to make sure we're including special events. Because I fully appreciate Brad's comments but I also recognize that we're not gonna be able to hire somebody just to sit around on snowy nights and run over and shovel every 30 minutes. Or if we do, it might cost us a lot.
An inch or two of fluffy snow is very different than a couple of inches of really wet, icy snow. You definitely want somebody out in that second scenario.
So right now, my son's only a first grader, last year's kindergartner, it really didn't snow last year. Decorah has a fleet or a set of vehicles that we use for snow removal already.
Yeah, we have some trucks with some plows, we have some snow blowers. We have a broom on the front of one of our lawnmowers. It's an attachment that we use inside the box. That's kind of what we do, and do salt spreaders.
If we were to contract this out, would the longevity of our existing truck that we're putting blade on the front of. Do we think that would expand? Would we not need as many trucks? Is there any cost savings from, how are we using the things we have?
I would say. You definitely wouldn't need as many of them, so when you go to replace a truck or whatever, you wouldn't necessarily put a small one. You're saying it that way. We have two at the high school that kind of break out from there, go to the middle school, carry the drop line. And then there's one at the transportation that kind of goes around in the tractors. So instead of having two at the high school, we just have the one there or just one district line. That's
Kathy, are we paying overtime for snow removal, or is that part of the raises that we have?
It wasn't a lot. They must have just went out earlier if it was like a no school day or they came in and then you canceled, but it wasn't a lot of extra overtime. I think we just shifted their hours.
As custodians came to us and said, this is something that's bothered, that's a problem for us.
I don't know. I haven't been involved in those conversations.
I haven't talked to any custodians that this is a particular problem. I know the custodians, we're understaffed right now, our custodial staff, so we're just looking at ways to make sure that the expectations get the building clean, we're not. It works out if we cancel school, right? Because hopefully the building's clean and they have less to do in the building, but if it's just a 2-hour delay, then you're moving snow and you're holding school. So, but yeah, if we had a fully staffed custodial staff, might feel a little different, but we struggle to get everybody staffed, so.
Maybe a follow-up question to that point, how many are we under right now?
We're under 2 right now because we were able to talk somebody into staying for another few months till the end of the year. What we created at the end of this year. 2 right now. AM high school and PM high school.
So we're looking at some human capital that is missing, and this might.
I don't, I am interested in having some estimates. I also appreciate your priority to learn from our local contractors to see what type of proposal makes sense for them. So I think collecting information right now would be great, especially again, as we're hiring a new facilities director. So I
And,
think this is a good idea.
and with any luck, we won't have any snow between now and October, so we can revisit.
Right.
I think just something to keep in mind is I think you can do this as like an office park too. So you could say,
Yeah.
I just want it to be all over the parking lots of high school or just parking lots only or just playgrounds.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's worth you doing some more
Yeah.
investigation. Probably not send an RFP out, but do some more investigation, see if there's some interest.
Absolutely, and have that ready to look at maybe in October,
Okay.
at least
Sounds great.
find out where the interest level is.
Okay, and then the last item under new business is review facility updates discussion.
So, with the, school bond, plans, and there's lots of questions coming in, with stuff, and see Nick's in the audience, thanks for joining us, Nick.
Yeah.
We do have I probably have about a 7 o'clock, drop dead time, so I can go get ready for the, second community forum here tonight at 7:30, but so one of the questions that's been posed a lot is West Side. And what's the board's intentions for West Side? And I've kind of answered like, well, the board really hasn't had a discussion about West Side yet. But I also don't anticipate the board. Well, I've said, I don't think, we wouldn't want to keep an empty building because it costs money to keep it up and replace roofs, and the boiler's old, but Cindy and I talked about having this as an opportunity to just talk about what
Yeah,
might be plans for West Side.
yeah, I think that's an important question for us to talk about because there's a special election tomorrow with two questions about financing a new school project, and then as part of the general election on November 5th. And our case for support is a new facility that would replace the existing John Klein and West Side, but we haven't had a conversation of what is the future of that West Side building. We know we've talked about the age of that building, the current conditions of that building, the designation of having the oldest operating boiler in the state of Iowa. I personally have a hard time imagining that building being used as a future school. I also acknowledge the emotions and nostalgia that comes from having an old school building in the community. So while I don't have the answers of what the future of that space could look like, I think it's important for us to at least have a conversation of, is this going to be a building that we maintain in our ownership and maintenance?
No, I don't think it's got any. Usefulness if we are able to build the John Klein that we're planning on. It won't have a role. And the thing that's so unique about that property is the unique layout, how it's kind of a circle, 3/4 of a circle. And I think that limits, somewhat the potential uses, but certainly of no value to the district. In fact, it's a negative because we would have to be doing, maintaining it. So I would, my goal would be to find someone who has an idea to put it to productive use. I could easily imagine a set of condos there or an apartment building or whatever. Maybe somebody actually wants to keep the building, but
maybe somebody wants to rehab it in some form or fashion and continue utilizing it with a new boiler and asbestos remediation and heating, cooling, all the things it would need. I don't know the answer to that, but there's a better purpose for that parcel of land and building than to sit vacant.
Right.
yeah,
It might be that the city might be interested in it as a part. I mean, did that ever come up in discussion at all when we talked with the city about buying the piece of land like behind the island?
yeah, it was
Briefly, but not, I don't think there's anything that really went anywhere. I know there's a little bit of conversation about sunflower, using it at one point in time, but I just agree with Ron that, I don't think we surely aren't trying to find a purpose for it right now, but I think we can surely agree that we don't need it for a school, for this, anything that the school has needs for, so. But I think, we'll be very, very respectful that piece of property is, a nice piece of property, whether it's got the building on it or not, and that we would surely work with the community to make sure that, it went to the best use that the building and the property itself could present opportunities for the city
Yeah.
or for the community.
So two additional points. If the new school project passes, we've worked with Nick Hildebrandt to design a project where the existing building could be used while new construction takes place. It was designed with that in mind. What was the second thing I was gonna say? It just left. I don't know. But agreed.
We have to keep it currently because we have 2 sections of pre-kindergarten in there.
Correct.
They don't all fit in John Klein. If I'm really gonna knock on wood, if there would be some failure at John Klein and we needed to displace students, we would probably ramp service back up into West Side and use Perry Lee, so kind of an emergency place. If there'd be anything like that, but once a new John Klein would be built, and as Ron said, with the capacity to house those children, the district doesn't have the need for it.
Right, and the number two just floated to the top. There's a process that the district has to go through. So when teachers and children and staff are in a new facility and the west side is vacant, at that point, there's a process and protocol about going to bid. So we can't choose, the district can't seek out and build relationships and choose the next owner of that property. There would be a public bidding process.
And that was a question we were asked at community forum,
Yeah.
was can we just give it to the city?
Right.
And, the city's right, with the new changes in the state law, you're supposed to put them up for bid and it's supposed to go to the highest bidder.
We also have a fiscal responsibility to the districts.
Right. Right.
So
Okay, any other further comments about that topic?
I will also knock on wood that the boiler continues to work in that building and that nothing needs to
Right.
shift within west side presently.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. And there's an attachment to the agenda. As we have been talking with the community about the school project, one of the things that gets my attention every time is when the question is asked, well, if this passes, when do we get to move in? That's a long time from now. I mean, we're looking at years of planning, bidding, developing, building. So, one of the questions that I asked is, does it make sense can we do anything now to help speed that process along? And we heard back, Dr. Cronin did his due diligence and kind of was asking some questions today. And we got some good feedback that we're doing great, right? I mean, we're doing the most we can right now with, we're just in a great position of owning the land, working through a project, having a community recommendation to move to vote. I'm not sure that we can do much more than that at this point.
Yeah, I would say, I know there's, Nick's got a lot of drawings, there maybe not. I think some people want him to be more specific, but one of the things, not only Nick, but I'm talking to Myron, our construction manager at risk, they're like, your drawings are well more advanced than most schools that have bond issues. Very rarely did, a very common question is, what is exactly gonna look like? Where is it exactly gonna sit, or what's it gonna look like? And I know Nick and I have talked about this a lot, and then Byron just kind of confirmed, like, you don't always have all that information because you don't want to have too much, because that's planning before a bond is successful. And so that was one of the things that I heard just even this afternoon. And then our diagrams, the work Nick's done has already kind of exceeded what most districts have when they go to a referendum. So.
well, we have been working on it for 10 years and we've, been presented to, well, how many, Ron?
Nick was in college when
Yeah.
we started this project. I heard that the other day.
That's
And
right.
Nick looks like he's a few years away, behind him from college.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, we've looked at that particular piece of property, 15 different directions and ways and different things and different places where it might sit in the building. So yeah, I think, we have some diagrams that, give us some basic feel for that property, right? So.
Yeah.
And we've used kind of, I think maybe one that's been a little bit more helpful, the last kind of go around with folks is not just what it looks like from the outside, but just kind of like help me understand where you just have the drawings of where the rooms would be and
A floor plan.
A floor plan. I didn't want to say the wrong terminology,
Yeah.
like schematic drawing or something like that, because
It's a schematic floor plan, it's just kind of allows you to see adjacencies and where they're proposed to be located on the site. In that floor plan book.
Yeah. So. Again, special election tomorrow. General election on November 5th. And. We'll hope that we can move into that final design phase. Shortly. After it passes, if it does. Which we're hoping with all our heart it does.
After the November.
Correct.
5th election.
Yeah.
Yeah, hoping that when we see Nick at the school board convention later in November, we can be celebrating the process that's beginning.
I'm anticipating not seeing Nick and just having a little sign that says Nick's home design at school.
Yeah, exactly.
Stepped away from my desk.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
Do not disturb.
Or sitting at his computer at school board convention.
Yeah. Any other questions about the project, any project updates? Okay, and then,
You highlighted the biggest talking question I've gotten from some people in the public, which is. What is it going to exactly look like? And it's like, oh. We have to cross Bridge A before you can start building the design, which is what you already talked about.
Yeah.
And it's hard to. Say we have to wait to do that, but also we don't want to put capital forth that.
right, exactly. Need to wait for the vote from the public.
Yes.
Right,
We'll keep the cart squarely behind the horse.
and then next is our superintendent's report.
I was kind of thin, just kind of highlighting, we did have the open houses. I was we had I don't know what I was expecting, but we had way more people than I thought were gonna come to the open houses. Those were those 2 Wednesdays in August. There's a video tour by Judy Moen. Oh, excuse me, there's some videos that talk about the 2 different things on the ballot. There is a video tour by Judy Moen as well, but that's not linked to my report. We have our second of 2 community forums tonight at 7:30. We had our first one last Thursday, and that was, I don't know, moderately to well attended. There was a period of time, like 10 minutes before, where we didn't have a lot of people, and everybody came in right at 5:30. I did a little slideshow, watched Judy's video, and then we did questions for probably 45 minutes to an hour for folks. So that was good. And the one item that isn't in my report is the need to shift board meetings from 5:30 to 6:30. Now that swim season has started.
Which should be very appreciated on my part.
I think we talked about it last year, how, and we'll move them starting in October, and then we'll go back to 5:30 in February or March.
March.
Okay.
Does anyone have a problem with that?
I don't.
6:30. It's good for me.
And we'll make sure we send out reminders and.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah.
All at the table.
Thanks for your service on the board.
So, but yeah, lots of time and energy, just kind of working on educating and getting the word out on information on the election for tomorrow.
With that in mind, I see your sticker tonight.
I voted early today, and I know that, tomorrow, district-wide, regardless of where you will vote on November 5th, tomorrow's special election is happening at the courthouse annex in Decorah. The entire school district will come to that one location.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The annex perhaps being better known by some as the old sheriff's department.
The old sheriff's department, okay.
From
Not the jail.
7 AM to 8 PM. Or when,
7 AM to 8 PM. Right? Anything else?
No, that's my report.
And the Kathy, financial report.
I don't have one yet. I was working on the CAR. We were waiting for two last accounts receivables to come in. They came in, Darlene finally deposited this morning, so I was able to run my reports. I've got a clean CAR, so now I can keep going forward.
Great.
So I have until Monday, next Monday, to have this all done and posted.
Okay. Well, all the best to you. Thanks for all your hard work. Okay, seeing we're at the end of our agenda, I will adjourn the meeting.